History shows us that the greatest Stoic philosophers already understood something many men today take decades to discover. While you wear yourself out chasing a woman who shows disinterest, you're actually feeding a cycle that only diminishes your value in her eyes and your own. Think for a moment. How many times have you ignored clear signs of indifference, convincing yourself that persistence would be the key to winning her over? Stoicism, that ancient philosophy that guided emperors and warriors, holds a valuable lesson for your love life that can completely transform your approach to relationships. When you desperately pursue someone, you create the exact opposite effect of what you desire. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. The paradox of attraction works similarly. By intensifying your pursuit, you communicate insecurity, an excessive need for approval, and consequently lower your perceived value. The Stoics deeply understood this dynamic, not just in relationships, but in all aspects of life. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, began teaching in Athens around 300 BC. His teachings, later developed by figures like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, offer a powerful framework for navigating the turbulent sea of human relationships. The central premise of Stoicism is remarkably relevant to the modern man. There is a fundamental distinction between what is under our control and what is not. Your thoughts, actions, and values are under your control. The behavior, feelings, and responses of others are not. Let's apply this lesson to relationships. When you chase a woman, you are essentially trying to control something completely outside your domain, her feelings for you. It's a battle lost before it even begins. And as if this fundamental impossibility weren't enough, your desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable generates consequences opposite to what you desire. Think about how you feel when someone tries to force friendship or intimacy on you. That person who insists on setting up dates after multiple excuses from you, who sends excessive messages without reciprocation, who tries to buy your affection with disproportionate gifts. Does that generate attraction in you or discomfort? The answer is obvious. So why imagine it would work differently when you adopt that behavior? It's essential to clarify an important distinction here. There is a crucial difference between chasing and showing healthy interest. Showing interest is a natural part of the attraction game between men and women. You see someone who catches your eye, start a conversation, suggest a date. This is normal and healthy. The problem begins when, faced with clear signs of disinterest or rejection, you insist, intensify your efforts, and compromise your dignity to try to force a connection that isn't happening naturally. Chasing means persisting after receiving clear signals of disinterest. It means diminishing yourself to please the other, making excessive concessions, tolerating unacceptable behavior, and basically communicating, "I don't have enough value to deserve reciprocity, so I'm willing to accept crumbs of your attention." It's this specific behavior that needs to be eliminated, not the healthy expression of interest and masculine initiative in courtship. Female psychology responds interestingly to this type of behavior. There's an apparent paradox many men fail to decipher. The more desperation you show for a woman, the less attractive you become in her eyes. Conversely, when you maintain your dignity and demonstrate that your happiness doesn't depend on her response, you often spark more interest. This happens for deep evolutionary and psychological reasons. Women are naturally attracted to men who demonstrate confidence in their own value. A man who maintains his standards, who doesn't diminish himself to please, and who communicates through his actions that he has options and alternatives, signals traits of a valuable partner. In contrast, a man who begs for attention, who tolerates disrespect, and who persists after clear rejections, communicates insecurity and low value. In Stoic terms, the man who chases is prioritizing external things, the approval and validation of a specific person, over his inner virtue, dignity, and self-control. He is violating the fundamental principle of Stoicism by trying to control the uncontrollable and neglecting what he actually can control, his own behavior and attitude. Excessive attachment to the specific outcome of winning over a particular person is what the Stoics would call passion in the negative sense of the term. For them, passions were not positive emotions, but states of irrational disturbance that threw a man off his center. When you become obsessed with a woman, allowing your mood and self-esteem to fluctuate according to her responses, you are, living exactly the kind of turbulent existence the Stoics sought to avoid. The Stoic solution is not to completely suppress your desire for connection or relationship. That would be contrary to human nature, and the Stoics were pragmatic in recognizing our social nature. The solution lies in cultivating what they called apatheia, not in the modern sense of apathy, but a kind of emotional equanimity, a healthy indifference to external events we cannot control, desiring without desperately clinging to the outcome. When you decide to stop chasing, what happens internally is a profound reorientation of values. You stop conditioning your happiness on the specific response of one person and start prioritizing your personal development, your projects, and your inner peace. This transformation isn't superficial or merely strategic. It's a genuine internal revolution that changes your stance towards life as a whole. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who was born a slave and later became one of the greatest thinkers of his time, said, "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly." Applied to relationships, this means accepting the reality of the other person's interest or disinterest without trying to force a change through insistence or pursuit. You might be thinking, but if I stop showing interest, how will she know I'm interested? This is a legitimate concern, but it stems from a flawed premise. If you have already clearly shown interest a few times and received indifference or rejection in return, she already knows you're interested. Continuing to insist doesn't add new information. It just communicates desperation and a lack of options. Conscious withdrawal can produce different reactions from her. In some cases, the woman who previously received your constant attention may miss that energy and seek to re-establish contact. This happens because, paradoxically, your absence creates a space that can awaken curiosity and appreciation. In other cases, there may be complete indifference from her, which only confirms there was no genuine interest from the start. The Stoic man accepts either of these outcomes with equanimity, understanding that the true value of the change lies in the emotional freedom gained, not in the reaction it provokes in the other person. When you stop chasing, you are reclaiming your emotional autonomy and dignity. You are communicating to yourself, first and foremost, that your value doesn't depend on the validation of one specific person. Seneca, another great Stoic, who was advisor to Emperor Nero before falling from grace, wrote something to the effect of, "The man who bases his happiness on external factors gives up control of his own life." When you condition your happiness on winning over a specific woman, you are essentially handing over the keys to your personal satisfaction to someone who may not even be interested in using them for your benefit. Stoic philosophy teaches that true freedom comes from desiring what is in harmony with our nature and dignity, not from trying to control the uncontrollable. Applied to relationships, this means seeking connections based on genuine reciprocity, mutual respect, and true compatibility, instead of obsessively pursuing a specific person who shows disinterest. This doesn't mean adopting a passive stance in your love life. On the contrary, it means being selective and strategic, investing your energy in opportunities that show real potential instead of wasting it chasing people who have already communicated, verbally or through actions, that they don't share the same interest. There's a fascinating paradox in all this. Often, when a man genuinely stops chasing and redirects his focus to his own development, he naturally becomes more attractive. This occurs not as a result of a manipulative playing hard to get technique, but as a natural consequence of the self-confidence and self-respect he begins to emanate. Self-assured people naturally attract others who resonate with that energy. When you stop chasing external approval and start cultivating internal approval based on your own values and standards, something magical happens. You begin to behave with the naturalness and confidence of someone who isn't desperate for a specific outcome. This posture attracts not only potential romantic partners, but also better opportunities in all areas of life. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher who wrote philosophical reflections while commanding the vast Roman Empire, had an exercise he practiced regularly, reminding himself of the transience of all things. He wrote in his journals, later compiled as Meditations, "Consider the shortness of human life, the abyss of time before and after, the fragility of everything that seems solid." Applying this Stoic perspective to relationships, when you are obsessed with a specific woman, you are lending eternal significance to something inherently transient. You are ignoring the vastness of life and the countless future possibilities, fixating on a single point in the universe of available experiences. The Stoic practice of focusing on the present is also fundamental in this context. Many men who chase live mentally in an imaginary future where they have finally won the desired person, or in an idealized past of moments when they felt some hope. The Stoic lives in the present, accepts reality as it is, and makes choices based on the current truth, not on fantasies or distorted memories. Ask yourself, what is real now? Not what you hope will happen, not what happened once, months ago when she responded more enthusiastically, but what is real today? Is she showing genuine interest, or are you interpreting ambiguous signals favorably to your hopes? Is there reciprocity, or are you making all the effort to keep the connection alive? This cold analysis of reality can be painful at first, but it's liberating. When you see the situation as it really is, without the filters of excessive hope or fantasy, you can make decisions more aligned with your dignity and emotional well-being. Another crucial aspect of this mindset is the practice of Stoic gratitude. When you stop chasing a specific person, you can redirect your energy toward appreciating the people who genuinely value you and the real opportunities life offers you. This attitude of gratitude transforms rejection from a tragedy into an opportunity for growth and redirection. Perhaps there are other women in your life showing genuine interest whom you're not noticing because you're fixated on someone who doesn't value you. Perhaps there are areas of your life, professional, physical, intellectual, spiritual, that have been neglected while you wasted energy on a fruitless pursuit. The decision to stop chasing opens up space for you to see and appreciate these other dimensions. The Stoics regularly practiced amor fati, love of fate. This meant not just accepting what happens, but actively embracing every event as necessary and beneficial for your growth. When a woman shows disinterest in you, instead of fighting against this reality, a modern Stoic would embrace this experience as a valuable opportunity for learning and redirection. Ask yourself, what can this rejection teach me? Perhaps about my approach, perhaps about my selection criteria, or perhaps simply about the need to develop greater emotional resilience. Each rejection, when embraced with this mindset, becomes a step in your personal development, not an obstacle. There's a story about Diogenes, the Cynic philosopher, a philosophical school that influenced Stoicism, who was once seen begging from a statue. When asked about this seemingly irrational behavior, he replied that he was practicing being rejected. Behind this anecdote lies a powerful lesson. The ability to face rejection without being emotionally devastated by it is a skill that can be developed. When you stop chasing, you are essentially practicing this same skill. You are telling yourself, I can accept that this specific person doesn't desire me, and that doesn't diminish my worth as a man. This ability to detach from the specific outcome is one of the greatest strengths you can develop, not just in relationships, but in all areas of life. Stoic detachment is often misunderstood as coldness or emotional suppression. That's not what's being proposed here. You don't need to stop feeling desire, attraction, or even a certain sadness about rejection. What you need to develop is the ability to feel these emotions without being controlled by them, without letting them drive you to desperate actions that compromise your dignity. Think of relationships like a game of tennis. You can control how you serve the ball to the other side, but you cannot control if the other person will return it or how they will do it. When you chase, metaphorically speaking, it's like running to the other person's side of the court after you've hit the ball, begging them to return it. This not only violates the rules of the game, but makes the whole experience unpleasant for both. This Stoic perspective on relationships applies not only to the initial phase of courtship, but also to established relationships that have become unbalanced. If you are in a relationship where you constantly need to chase your partner's attention, affection, or consideration, the same principles apply. Stopping the chase in this context doesn't necessarily mean ending the relationship, but it certainly means re-establishing your value and communicating that you expect reciprocity. One of the most powerful aspects of Stoic philosophy is that it invites us to examine our underlying beliefs. When you find yourself desperately chasing a woman, it's worth asking, what beliefs are fueling this behavior? Perhaps a belief in scarcity, the idea that there are few compatible women for you. Perhaps a belief of inadequacy, the feeling that you need to compensate for some perceived deficiency with extra effort. Or perhaps an idealized belief about that specific person, the notion that she possesses unique and irreplaceable qualities. All these beliefs can be questioned in the light of Stoic reason. The belief in scarcity ignores the vastness of the world and the countless possibilities for connection. The belief of inadequacy is usually based on arbitrary standards or unrealistic comparisons, and the idealization of a specific person almost always involves projecting imaginary qualities that have more to do with our needs than with who the person really is. The Stoics were masters at applying rational thought to dispel irrational beliefs. Epictetus taught, "It is not things themselves that disturb people, but their opinions about them." When you change your opinions, your interpretations and beliefs about rejection, about your own value, and about the dynamics of attraction, you naturally change your behavior. Another fundamental pillar of Stoic philosophy is the idea that virtue is the only true good. For the Stoics, virtue meant living according to the rational nature of human beings, manifesting qualities such as wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. When you desperately pursue someone who shows disinterest, you are violating several of these virtues. The wisdom to recognize reality, the justice of treating yourself with due respect, the courage to face the truth, and the temperance in your impulses and desires. The truly virtuous man, from a Stoic perspective, maintains his dignity in all circumstances. He may desire a relationship, but he would not compromise his integrity to obtain it. He understands that a relationship based on unilateral pursuit would be inherently unbalanced and therefore contrary to virtue. There's a story about the philosopher Socrates, who profoundly influenced Stoicism, and his wife Xanthippe, known for her difficult temper. It is said that once, after an argument, she threw a bucket of dirty water on him. His response was simply, "After the thunder comes the rain." This anecdote illustrates the ability to maintain composure and a sense of humor, even in challenging circumstances, a central quality of the Stoic mindset. This same composure is essential when you decide to stop chasing. It's not about reacting with bitterness, resentment, or spite. It's about recalibrating your approach with dignity and self-control. When a woman perceives that your withdrawal isn't motivated by anger or manipulation, but by genuine self-respect and respect for her, it communicates strength of character. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus taught that virtues are the same for men and women. In the context of relationships, this means that the same qualities you admire and seek in a partner, honesty, respect, reciprocity, self-care, should be cultivated in yourself. By stopping the chase, you are practicing these virtues, creating consistency between what you offer and what you expect to receive. There is a dimension of profound self-discovery in this process. Many men, after periods of fruitless pursuit, realize that the intensity of their interest was more related to the validation they sought than to the person herself. When you stop chasing and begin to rebuild your identity and value independently of external approval, you often discover that your tastes and criteria also change. You start valuing different qualities, not just physical beauty or social availability, but genuine compatibility, reciprocity, character, and aligned values. This refinement of your criteria is a sign of emotional maturity and personal development. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When you stop spending mental energy chasing a disinterested person, you free up space for more productive, creative thoughts aligned with your long-term goals. Your mind literally becomes a more pleasant place to inhabit. The stance of not chasing also involves allowing connections to evolve naturally without trying to force a specific pace or direction. The Stoics valued the concept of living according to nature, which meant respecting the natural rhythms and processes of the world. Healthy relationships have their own organic pace of development. Trying to artificially accelerate them usually creates resistance or imbalance. A fundamental principle of Stoicism is that we are responsible only for our own actions, not for the results of those actions. Applied to relationships, this means you can choose how you present yourself, how you communicate, how you treat the other person, but you cannot control how the other person responds. When you deeply accept this truth, you stop trying to manipulate outcomes and start focusing simply on acting with integrity, letting the results unfold naturally. Another important Stoic distinction is between preferences and absolute demands. You may prefer that a specific woman reciprocates your interest, but transforming that preference into an absolute demand upon which your happiness depends is the path to suffering. The Stoics cultivated the ability to have preferences without turning them into rigid psychological needs. When you stop chasing, you are essentially practicing this distinction. You continue to prefer connection and relationship, but you stop, demanding that it come from a specific person who has already shown disinterest. This mental flexibility is liberating. A practical exercise inspired by Stoicism that can help in the process of stopping the chase is negative visualization, premeditatio malorum. Fully imagine the worst possibility, that this person will never reciprocate your interest, that you will never have the relationship you imagined with her. Accept this possibility not just intellectually, but emotionally. When you reconcile yourself with the worst-case scenario, you significantly diminish the power that the fear of rejection holds over you. Another valuable exercise is what we might call the cosmic perspective, a common practice among Stoics. Imagine observing your current situation from a great height, as if you could see the entire planet Earth and the vastness of the universe. From such a perspective, how significant is this specific rejection? How important will this situation be in 5 years or even 1 year? This exercise helps to resize problems that seem enormous at the moment. It's important to recognize that stopping the chase is not a manipulative technique to make her chase you. That would just be another form of attempted control, contrary to the Stoic spirit. The true goal is to reclaim your emotional autonomy, reorient your focus to what is under your control, and open yourself up to possibilities aligned with your well-being and growth. If she eventually shows genuine interest, great. You can reevaluate the situation from a position of greater balance and clarity. If she doesn't, that's also great. You will have preserved your dignity and opened up space for more reciprocal and satisfying connections in your life. Finally, by stopping the chase, you begin to exercise what the Stoics called love of fate, amor fati, the complete acceptance of reality as it presents itself, transforming obstacles into opportunities. A romantic rejection then becomes not an end, but the beginning of a journey of self-discovery and personal growth that will inevitably lead you to healthier and more satisfying relationships. Understand that true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. The inner discipline you develop by refusing to chase external validation is the same discipline that will make you successful in all areas of life. It's Stoic self-control in action, the ability to direct your actions according to consciously chosen principles, not momentary impulses or emotional needs. What happens when you truly master this Stoic mindset? You become a man who naturally attracts instead of chases. Your energy fundamentally changes, from scarcity to abundance, from neediness to conscious choice, from reactivity to centeredness. This is not only a more attractive state for potential partners, but a more satisfying state for yourself, regardless of external outcomes. Imagine being free from the anxiety of waiting for replies, free from the constant fear of saying the wrong thing, free from the emotional roller coaster of interpreting every little sign or change in behavior. Imagine channeling all that mental energy into your goals, passions, and personal growth. This is the gift Stoicism offers for your love life, and perhaps the most transformative aspect of this approach is that it doesn't just apply to romantic relationships, but to all areas of life where you might be chasing, whether it's professional approval, social acceptance, family validation, or any other form of external recognition. The principles remain the same. Focus on what's under your control, act with virtue and integrity, and allow the results to unfold naturally. Stoicism teaches us that true strength comes not from controlling others or circumstances, but from governing our own responses, choices, and attitudes. When you stop chasing people who show disinterest, you are reclaiming this fundamental power over your own life. And paradoxically, it's precisely when you stop desperately chasing that you begin to naturally attract what you truly desire. Apply these Stoic principles consistently, and you will transform not only your dating life, but your relationship with yourself. The true relationship that needs cultivating first is the one between you and your own nature. When you honor your values, respect your boundaries, and act with dignity, you become magnetic to people who resonate with that energy, whether that's the person you were previously chasing or, more likely, someone new who will enter your life when the mental and emotional space is available. The choice is in your hands now. You can continue the draining cycle of chasing those who show no genuine interest, or you can reclaim your personal power through this ancient wisdom that guided some of the most powerful and respected men in history. The Stoic path doesn't promise specific external outcomes, but it guarantees something far more valuable: your inner freedom and personal dignity, regardless of external circumstances. Stop chasing now and watch how your life transforms. Not because this will manipulate others into coming to you, but because you will have finally found the center of your own power, the only place from which truly satisfying relationships can flourish.